Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Okay, good morning. This is a meeting of the 95 Lawrence Road Task Force and Evaluation Committee. It's being recorded. Waiting for a couple of more people, but we can get started. I did send out a little bit more concrete agenda. So let me just say that we did get word from Town Council that we may consider all three applications having met the minimum requirements. That was, got that information from Katie Klein at KP Law yesterday. So
Excellent.
we're on track to do all three. And let me just jump ahead to the site visit plan now. We're on for Monday. Oh, here comes Jim. Great. Morning, Jim.
Morning.
We're just getting started. Oh, look, here comes Laura too. All right.
Elaine, I have a question. We're going over the criteria this morning, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I did not review Civico's.
Okay.
But because I thought we were holding off on that one.
Okay, here we go. We're starting. I did just announce right before you came on that we got the okay from Town Council that all three proposals met the the minimum criteria, and that we could ask Civico just to provide that one element that we didn't see.
Okay.
So yeah, I haven't had time to go through all three myself that thoroughly, but anyway, that's the word on that. So we are looking at all three proposals. In terms of the site visits on Monday, we are set up for Nokachoke Village at approximately 9:30. Then Canal Bluffs at approximately 11:30. Melpet Farms was not available that day, but then Lakeview Terraces in Chatham at approximately 2. I think we'll get there. We have, unfortunately, Kathleen cannot go with us. So we have 6 people going. That's still 2 cars, as I see it. Jim has offered to drive, which is great.
I have 2.
And Jan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great. Would we want to just convene at Cove Corners, the Dunkin' Donut parking lot? And would that work for everybody at 8 o'clock?
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
All right. That's the plan then.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry. So the order that would be Nokachoke, Canal Bluffs.
And Lakeview Terrace in
Okay.
Chatham.
And what time is Lakeview?
I think we can probably get there by around 2.
Okay.
It's hard to say, with traffic and how long it might go faster. I think Canal Bluffs will be a little longer because somebody will be able to show us and talk about the wastewater treatment system. It's a much bigger site.
Should we brown bag lunch? Or not? We're not intending to stop.
I don't think so. So yeah, I would, if you want, bring something with
The
you.
only thing I would ask is that perhaps Canal Bluffs has charging stations there.
Ah,
Okay. I'll check. That's why I was asking what the order was and everything. But I'll be fine. I think I've got like 300-mile range, but I don't know if we'll do that much.
okay.
And can I sign up for your car?
Yeah.
Yeah, can we all squeeze in? Don't have a rumble seat. Okay. All right, great. So the main focus today is to start the evaluations of our three proposals. In looking through them, it's obviously kind of preliminary, as we will be visiting sites and interviewing references, but certainly to begin the first look at that. Laura, do you have advice on process?
Hi, everyone.
I,
There's kind of a couple ways that folks typically do it. I don't know, did you make, I can't remember because I get too many different projects mixed in my head. Did you make a scoring sheet for folks?
No, we just have the criteria as the attachments to the RFP.
Okay. What I typically suggest is that everyone individually goes through and scores each of the proposals, and I can send you like a scoring sheet. It's just really a grid of a table with the criteria for each project. And so, and I suggest that everyone individually does it in pencil. And then when you come together, you can discuss it, but that gives everyone kind of, you're not being influenced by others. You're looking at your own evaluation. And then jot down, if you have reasons for it being highly advantageous or why it's unacceptable, jot that down. And then when you come together, you're all starting, you can go through each proposal and you're not reinventing the wheel. You've already looked at them, you've already evaluated them individually, and then you can come together and reach consensus on a score for each of the proposals.
Okay, I did ask everybody to go through them individually and do it in pencil. I don't know if
Okay.
everybody's had time to do all three of them.
Right.
But then really take one at a time then, right?
Yes.
And go through the entire thing.
Yeah. And it's certainly helpful to do it, after you have a presentation, because you're having presentations, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Certainly look at a preliminary look is fine now, but I wouldn't
Okay, good idea.
dive into the scoring as a group until after you've had the presentations.
Okay.
Makes
And we
sense.
yeah. I think, it takes a lot of sifting going through them. So I think the more time we have for general conversation and pointing out things is great. We do have our presentations lined up for Friday, September 10th.
That's right.
I believe we'll be starting with which one? POA, then POA at 10, community builders, I think 11:30, and then Civico at 12:30. I'll send that out, but that just got set up this morning, finished setting up. So we do have that. So we have, time. Couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it's really important that you go through the proposals before that in case there's clarifying questions that, that you want to bring up. There'll be some questions that you'll ask all of them, but the clarification questions really have to zero in on what they've presented to you.
Mhm.
That's so you should be familiar with them going into that on the 10th. So you have, certainly a lot of time to do that. And you can look at specifics in the proposals to score that wouldn't be influenced by a presentation. And I can't remember, were you hiring someone to review the financials?
Yes.
Let me, Elaine, if I can speak to that. I did send a request for quotes to 4 people. 2 of them said they had no time to undertake this project in this time frame. A third one said the same thing, but indicated she would, with my permission, send the RFQ along to others who might be interested. And the fourth one, I had discussed it with her by telephone the day I sent it out, but I haven't had a response from her yet. I asked for responses by the end of the day today. But right now, there's only one person out there that hasn't declined.
Ouch. Okay.
So,
Yeah, it's tough to find someone to do it, honestly.
is that something that a CPA who represents developers might also be able to do, or is it very more specialized than that?
It's pretty specialized because of the funding sources. It's really evaluating whether the funding sources that they have indicated, if it's in with the parameters. So you really have to be familiar with the various funding sources and their limitations and how the limitations kind of pile up because they have 5 or 6 sources.
Harry, there were a number of other people on lists that we received as potential candidates. I don't know if you want to broaden the search or not.
Okay, well, I sent it out to everybody I was aware of. I thought I had a complete list, but there was only 4 people.
I thought
Yeah, we have some more.
I thought I sent you, Harry, a list with, there were people beyond the 4. I can send that again.
Okay.
Right.
Well, it's a very compressed time frame too.
Yeah.
But go ahead, I'm sorry. Jan.
I wanted to ask Laura my burning question, because as I look through everything, this matters quite a bit to me. When we have the presentations, Laura, can we ask the developer how flexible he might be, she might be with adjustments? For example, a building that's very big, that we like everything, we like all this and that, and they have nice parking spaces and bike racks, but they've got a huge building and we don't want a huge building. Can we talk like that to a developer? No. Okay, thank you.
No, you're evaluating what they presented.
Okay,
And the town cannot be controlling the design beyond what you put in the RFP.
okay, thank you. That makes all the difference, doesn't it? Yeah.
Elaine, before we leave the financial analysis, let me just make one observation, and that is that 2 of the proposals are from organizations that have done this many times, and you might be able to infer from that they know exactly how to do it. The third one, I think, said that they were not going to use low-income tax credits, low-income housing tax credits, that they were going to look for essentially market financing for the project.
Right.
And so does that give us some level of confidence that we don't have to worry about that as much based on the track record of the ones that are going to use the tax credits?
Good question, Harry.
And I'm just thinking forward to what happens if I can't find anybody in a time frame that we are talking about, which I think may very well be the case.
Yeah.
Is it more important to expand the time frame? I would assume we have to do it for all three if we're going to do it, right?
Yeah.
So,
I have a question related to that, Laura. Is it possible for us to make a recommendation, but subject to the proviso that it has to be do the financial analysis so that we can get some more time? So
No.
we can't do it halfway.
No, I wouldn't do it halfway.
what was the date we set, Harry?
September
I
24th.
asked for a written report, I think by September 8th, and asked for attendance at a committee meeting on September 13th.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If we
that's-
want the selectmen to make an award at the end of September, we're kind of stuck with that timing. I don't know how changing the timing is going to change the ability of organizations to arrange tax credit financing.
Well, I think the hope was that they could get an application in this year. They've moved the at least 10 to, the NOFA isn't out yet for this year's funding, but I think instead of December, the pre-application is going to be November, so it's going to be really tight, even with the schedule that you have for someone to get an application in. So I would lean more towards doing it right here than trying to meet a deadline that may have been pushed up anyway, push up beyond your control anyway. So I'm not sure that rushing it or, trying to meet a timeline when I don't think a developer, by the time they get site control, which is a land disposition agreement, not just an award of the project, probably is doable before the end of November anyway.
Okay, so we should really be thinking about expanding our time frame to get everything done that needs to be done.
I think so.
Okay. So Harry, I don't know if we want to get back to at least the one person that hadn't said no, or to everybody and expand.
I'd send it out to everybody I sent it to, plus anybody I should have sent it to initially and with the revised timing, because the responses weren't, I'm not interested in your project, that I'm so booked up right now, I can't come up for air.
Mhm. Okay, well, do we want to talk about a time frame then for this?
I would wait and see if you hear, first of all, I wait and see if you hear anything today, make a plan for if the answer is no,
Mhm.
that, you would expand it, or at least expand the time they have to bring the report back to you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Is probably what, that's a crunch that they're in right now.
Okay, and I'll send you that list again, Harry, that I thought had.
Okay,
Elaine,
all
I
the-
just sent it to him.
okay.
Can you send it to me also, just so I can see if there's anyone else that
Good idea.
that I hadn't sent you?
Are you talking about extending it 2 weeks, or are you talking about a real extension?
Well, I think we're waiting to see if we get any response by the end of the day.
But if we don't,
I think you got to give them till the end of the month, the end of September.
That end of September, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll see what happens today, and if we don't get a response, we'll send out a revised one looking for the end of September.
Okay. So let's do our pilot discussions of the evaluation sheets. Does anybody have a suggestion? Has anybody gone through at least one of them thoroughly?
Yeah, I went through them, and what I got as I started just like, putting the initials of the different developers in the boxes and stuff. Then I realized that I needed to assign a point system. So I just started, assign, 1 to 10, where they came in. And that's as far as I got.
Okay, I think we're going to have to all do it the same way. So, that's sort of the system you used for now. I don't know, could I suggest that we start with either the community builders or POA today?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, there were just a couple of other comments. There are two things that we do not have yet that would factor into our final analysis, and that's reference checks and the site visit. So we can go through these and work on them, but probably we want to delay a final decision until after we've completed reference checks and after we've had the site visit.
And after we've had the presentations.
Right.
Right,
Yes,
right.
yes,
Um,
correct.
Elaine,
Let me see, I think Kathleen has her hand up. Let me,
Yeah, Elaine, I went through them as well, and I didn't give them a point system. And I'm not sure if Laura wants to, expand on that scoring, but I guess we're looking at something through 1 through 10. But I did go through all of them and made check marks and comments.
okay.
Good for you. Good.
Yeah, Laura, if you send us the grid you talked about, we can look at that and see, because we really, once we get down to the real nitty gritty, we want everybody to be marking it the same. So,
Right, yeah, now's the time to choose whether you're going to just use highly advantageous, or unacceptable as your scoring, or whether you want to assign points. You didn't weigh anything differently, so each category would be weighed the same. And typically, if people want to assign points, they do like 0 for unacceptable, 5 for advantageous, and 10 for highly advantageous,
Okay.
or 0, 3, and 5, or it's, it's kind of in that realm, whether you want a 0 to 10. But like I said, you need to make that decision probably today and do it. And you could, like Jay have 0 for unacceptable, because that's really what it is, and have 1 to 5 in advantageous and 6 to 10 in highly advantageous. Is that similar, Jay, to what you were doing?
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
I'm not in love with what I was doing.
Okay.
I just needed to, because I couldn't get a handle on it otherwise.
Yeah.
Right.
It's in a simple, just go through it and, and get it done kind of way.
Yeah.
And I by the end, wasn't sure I was being fair to everybody. And I was going to ask you further about your score sheet, how that works.
It's really just a place to, a place to show everything that you've done. And so at the end, you usually give the score sheet to the select board, the consolidated one, you give to the select board or whoever's making the final award, so they can see it's kind of part of the record. It's not necessary, but it usually helps in the process.
I think as I was going through them, just looking at the 3 categories, I did have parts that were in the middle of one of them or the other. So I guess that's where a numerical rating could help.
But I think the 0 is the key for unacceptable. I don't think unacceptable should be a 1 or a 2, right? A 0 is the right thing for that, and then the whole rest of the range for everything else, I think.
Harry, hand up.
Yeah, a couple of comments. It's, I think, very difficult to do a numerical scoring where people do not have pretty clear instructions on how they are to assign points to each category. We do have 7 groups of comparative, categories. And I'd be very surprised if that wasn't enough to differentiate these 3
That's true.
responses.
That's true.
You're probably not going to find anybody with 7 highly advantageous. And I'd be surprised if you ended up with a tie between 2 of them. On the other hand, there are, as I look at these things, there are a couple of things. For example, one of the criteria is to show areas to park the snow when you're clearing snow. And, one of them did it, but it's really kind of, design minutia. And I'd hate to mark somebody not highly advantageous if the only thing that they didn't do was say where the snowplow is going to put the snow when they plow the road. So, because highly advantageous is, meets all of the criteria, basically meets or exceeds all criteria. And it's tough to mark somebody off because they didn't show a bike rack, or they didn't show where the snow was going to go, or they didn't show a charging station for an electric vehicle. Not that those are minimal things, but it's tough to differentiate a $15 million project based on, where the snowplow is going to go.
Mhm.
On the other
Okay.
hand, on
Hold on a minute. If you know how to raise your hand, that really helps.
Oh, sorry.
But I see Gary has his hand up, but Olga, you had your hand up.
I just want to be clarified, each category is weighted the same. Did I hear Laura say that?
Yeah, that's
Okay. All right.
okay. Gary?
Yeah, I had some interpretive, Laura. If they indicate that they have a subcontractor, then we take the capabilities of that subcontractor to evaluate the different criteria. That it's the same as if the company had done it themselves.
I mean, like a designer or an engineer?
Yes. In this case, if they say I'm going to get Bowler to do it, is that the same as saying I'll do it myself?
Well, you should have the qualifications of the,
Right, we have the qualifications, but so is a subcontractor the same? We
yes,
evaluated.
they're part of the
way
development
it's done.
team.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. And then the second one related to that was, in one case, they indicated they wanted to get someone. And they named the person, but they weren't under contract or arrangement. So how do we evaluate that?
If they have, I mean, I guess it depends on, how important they are to the development team. It is very early to have a management agent on board if they're not, if it's not within the company already. Some have arms that are management and some don't. And it would be very too early in the process for the most part to have someone, a third party on board at this point.
So if they indicated they wanted to use X, I can give you a specific example. They said that I'm going to contract with Hack to do the lottery and selection process. We know Hack has the capabilities, but they haven't actually arranged anything with them.
Yeah,
So how do
and they wouldn't. So,
Right. But the others already have that ability in place.
right. So they shouldn't be, you know, we know that Hack is a certified lottery and marketing agent, so,
And,
you know.
and the second question I had to do with trying to evaluate what's written versus what's not written. So, and with regard to the septic, you know, we proposed a certain amount, 44%, and one clearly indicated that in their cost, and the other two said we support it.
Yeah.
Is that evaluated the same? I didn't know how to
Score.
score it. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the financials, so I'm not sure whether they the others had incorporated it.
I think only one had incorporated it into their cost. The other simply said we support the idea of wastewater treatment, but not specific in terms of I'm committed to the 44% or the $7,500, $750,000. Excuse me.
Let me look at that closer.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
One other, I mean, general questions right now are good, helpful. Laura, this sort of goes along with the one Jan asked in the beginning. Every proposal said, this is our proposal, but we look forward to talking with the town and other stakeholders about this. And what does that really mean? Since you said the changes can't be, you know.
Obviously there are some things that get tweaked as the land disposition agreement gets finalized, as far as, timing and some other things. When their architectural drawings move beyond conceptual, there's going to be some things that change, that because they have to, because they have a typical unit that doesn't fit in, something like that. Those kinds of things are tweaks, not real changes. Because you are scoring, I think what my point is that you're scoring them on what they present, not what you hope they present after you choose them. And so, you need to look at what is in the proposal. Will there be changes? Yeah, there'll be some changes because of permitting. There'll be changes because of that. There may be changes because as, they're working off of they'll do a current survey that may have some changes that they need to tweak where something is. And then architecturally, as the plans develop, there may be some changes that are necessary, that are, like I said, tweaks, not overall changes. But things can change in the permitting process that are beyond what's in the proposal. So what I would suggest is don't look at, gee, I'd love this if they only did X.
Yeah.
Look at, this is what they're telling us, this is how I'm scoring it.
Right.
All right.
Makes sense.
To go back to the septic thing for a minute. Yeah, one of the responses explicitly said that they would fund, I guess it was 44% of the cost. I couldn't find it as a line item in any of the responses development proposals. And I kind of viewed the other two as more of an invitation to negotiate rather than as a, I'm on board with this. At least one of them was suggesting, well, I know what the calculated flow would be for 46 units with this many bedrooms, but it's probably going to be less than that. And that kind of sounded to me like, well, we're going to suggest that we should pay less. So I'm not sure that I take the vague statements as of the same quality as the explicit one that said we'll buy in according with you to your RFP on the shared wastewater treatment. And that probably should come out when we talk about evaluating that part of each proposal, but
I'm thinking just as a beginning, if we start with one and we really more point out the ones that we felt were pretty clearly covered, and then point out the parts that we didn't see or didn't feel were clearly covered, that will give us a start. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I took the evaluation sheet. Maybe you can't see it, but I've got notes all over it from,
Yeah.
you know, I like this, I couldn't find this, this is
Mhm.
problematic, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's what, today, to start with something like that. Does that make sense, Laura?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see how it goes.
Okay,
We have a half hour.
I tossed them up in the air, and POA came down first, so.
Okay.
Okay.
that's because it's heaviest. Galileo notwithstanding.
Everybody have the score sheet in front of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Desk is not big enough for this.
Any major questions for POA under developer experience and capacity, their whole team?
Not really.
I just had an observation on that one, that the role for the CDP role seemed less clear to me.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I kind of thought that their role was, local boots on the ground communication, but that this is really, in terms of the end product, really POA's project.
Yeah.
Do they, earlier, we had talked about a question under the basic requirements. Do they in fact have an ownership in the project?
Right.
They're not listed in the,
Yeah.
you look at the, see if I can find it in this massive thing here. The required certifications. Yeah, here we go. The Chapter 30B disclosure statement for real property shows POA disclosing itself as a tenant, but under a land ground lease, but it doesn't say anything about CDP.
So is this an important clarifying question we'd want to ask them
Yes.
at the proposal? Just since it's not clear and we want to know, this is not something we can follow up with in between times, right, Laura?
Right, I would think that's a clarifying question.
Okay.
It's, appropriate to ask what CDP's role is and do they have an ownership position?
Kathleen?
Yeah, to get back to that point, I would like to ask POA if, in fact, they've had this particular arrangement before in past developments. This seems to be a partnership of POA and CDP. Have they partnered with another individual in this way? And what was the breakdown of that partnership with regard to responsibility to the development? So I did have questions with regard to that as well, because it's not specific in, in their opening statements with regard to CDP's part in this, if you will, and whether or not POA has had this arrangement before.
Well, if I may, Elaine, on page 24, they show a single purpose entity, Lawrence Road Preservation Partners LLC.
Right.
And they show POA as the managing member and CDP as a member. So that would be like, that would be essentially a partnership where they each have ownership interests.
Okay, page 24.
Yep.
it's very helpful if you see something to put the page number where you saw it in these
Right.
sections.
Just so I can find it again, yes.
Yeah.
One other just a little question I had about the columns here, the energy efficient one under advantageous. It says energy efficient buildings part of standard approach, and under highly advantageous, it says energy efficient design is their standard approach to design and development. I was having a little trouble figuring out how one was more, had a higher rating than the other.
I missed that. Where is it?
Well, I suppose the differentiation when this was written, I don't remember us doing that, but are they doing it for our particular project, which would be advantageous, or do they always do it? Is it on their other projects? Is it just a matter of pro forma that they always have this approach? I guess that's what the differentiation is.
Yeah, you're right on that, Jan. There's an industry standard with regard to efficiency,
Yeah.
building code. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know how we determine which is which, but that's the difference. Yeah.
Well, it would be comforting to me if this is the way they always do their projects.
Right.
Because it's an
Exactly.
indication that they know how to do it and have been successful doing it in the past, as opposed to, I'm going to crack open the book now and find out what it's all about.
Exactly.
Right. Any other comments on the first section, developer experience and capacity for COA? Okay, how about under affordability, the next category?
That's kind of an interesting one because at least 85% affordable to 80% AMI or below. One of the things that's missing in this community is housing for people above 80% AMI. One proposed developer explicitly called that out as something that they want to do. They called it market, but they said up to 110% of AMI. The other two, I think both said they would all be 80% AMI or below.
Right.
So that technically ranks the guy who's the group that's willing to go above 80% AMI is less attractive than the other two, but it has some attraction to me.
I don't think so, because there's the other 15%. It's the 85%, but the 15% can be from all the way up to 120, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I believe we had two proposals that didn't go over 80%. They
Right.
said everything would be 80%. We had one that did respond to our going up to 120%. I did have a question, and it sounds, if I understand it, they're sort of calling market rate anything from 70% or over, and it sounded like they were relating that to the fact that the that AMI in Wellfleet was lower, so that would mean market rate is considered what people can afford.
Right. So if you look at the Eastham project, for example, they wanted to go up to 120%, or maybe it was 110. I can't remember which.
They couldn't get there.
And they couldn't get there. They could only go up to 90% because that was considered fair market rent and affordable based on the AMI for the county or in the area. And now that's a couple of years ago, so I'm not sure, where if it still is, but median income, I think, went down a little bit, just a little bit this year from last year. But I think that's what the developers were looking at, what fair market rent correlated to.
Mhm. And essentially then they're not going to be looking for any kind of funding to help have a few units over 80%. Is that what they're sort of saying?
Right, because the funding that Eastham got said they could only go to 90%.
Is there any mechanism for the town to put in some money to bring it to that? Or if we didn't say something like that in our RFP, is that not an option?
It's probably not, it's not really an option now.
Okay.
Laura,
Gary?
I had a question about the rents, since you've mentioned it, and I can ask it about POA in particular, but so on their page 65, they have proposed average rent. And what I don't understand is the rents differ from place to place, but isn't it a function of 30% of AMI and then the calculation of what that would be? So in the people who are the apartments that are targeted for people at 30%, wouldn't it be the same for everybody? I mean, across POA or community builders or whomever it may be? Isn't it a calculation based upon income?
Yes,
So if there's differences, it's just, how do we evaluate them?
the difference is in it depends if they're assuming that they are, if they're assuming that they have vouchers, they'd be higher.
Yeah, but just take anyone, take them at 60% without a voucher.
Yeah,
Wouldn't the proposed rent be the same for
yes.
all of them? And yet, in fact, they're not. And I just didn't know how to evaluate them. And my other question related to that is whether it in fact differs by what utilities are included.
No, they should have. They usually put the gross rent in
Yeah.
they don't do the net of
Net of utilities.
of
Yeah, that's it.
utilities.
Yeah.
So I can send you a chart of what they should be.
Okay, and if they're not, we just ask them about that.
So is there any easy explanation for why they do differ across the proposals?
I guess it could be, and I don't know who's who, which one's different, but if they were looking at lip rents versus anything, how tax credit rents, they'd be different because they're calculated differently. So it depends on the housing program. But I will look closer at that. It also would be something that someone who was doing a financial review would look at and verify that the rents that they put in were accurate.
Because they could change, right? I mean, what they put in could potentially change.
It changes annually.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but they changed in March, I think, or April. So it's not like they changed in the middle of this RFP.
Right.
It happens. So sometimes you'll get old rents because it was, they did that part of it first or last.
So just to give you the reference for everybody, this POA, it's on page 65, and the community builders, it's on page 39. So we have the same description in terms of a low-income house credit, 60% AMI, but it's just a different amount. It just was secure.
Okay.
Significantly different.
All right. I will look.
Do we evaluate them as who has the lowest rent? So is that better?
No, I think that's, like I said, I think it's part of the financial review. And if that part, I mean, I can look at that part and its accuracy, basically.
Thanks.
So,
Great. Okay. Anything more on affordability? Can we move to site design?
Could I ask one other question, Elaine? I'm sorry. It says in our criteria, some targeted at or below 50%. And since we didn't define some, so is any, I mean, in one particular case, they only have 4 below 50%. So is that would be acceptable?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, comments, questions under site design?
I had a question
Jay,
or a comment. One of the things that bothered me about all of these proposals is that no one showed a cross section through the site. The grade varies sharply. I mean, one proposal, the POA proposal, I think it was. No, it was.
One proposal had a topo, sort of.
Well, I mean, the community builders seem to show a retaining wall between the ball field and what they're calling, I think, the lower vision
Yep.
village or the school corner or something. And but none of the others really did. And and even the one that showed the retaining wall, we don't know how high it is or what's going on one side and what's going on the other side. I mean, maybe all that stuff will be clear as we move along. It would have been great to have it. I wish we had put it in the RFP, but I guess since we didn't, we just have to analyze what's in front of us.
well, we did, I had that question about elevations because it is mentioned somewhere in here, but I didn't see those kind of things.
Oh yeah, they have verbiage about treating the site sensitively or this or that, but it's basically shown as flat as a pancake.
Right.
Yeah, POAS does have a site layout that's got 10-foot contours on it.
Oh yeah, the contours were given to them. That was on
Yeah.
the site plan that they got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can see why they might need a retaining wall there.
Well, you got to do something.
Because it's 68 at the street and 88 at the ball field.
Yeah, that's quite a difference.
Yep.
Okay, that's a good comment.
Elaine?
Gary?
I'm looking at the under site design, the question adequate parking.
Yeah,
So one of them proposed a parking ratio of 1.1, the other 1.3, and the third one 1.56.
Mhm.
And we know that adequate parking is really a key to community happiness.
right.
So I don't know what the definition of adequate is, but do we have one for the town?
Yes.
Yes.
The zoning,
1.5.
And
the
what is
zoning
that?
says two
One at a time,
two
please.
spaces. Yeah,
2 spaces per what?
per dwelling unit.
Per dwelling unit. So
That's what the zoning says.
So if we have that, if they have that ratio and POA happens to be the one with the 1.1 proposed, is that something we can ask them to change, Laura, based upon the zoning?
That would, no,
Would that
I
be an
mean,
material change?
they're gonna look for a waiver all of them are gonna look for a waiver of that
Right.
provision. You don't have anything that differentiates between bedroom sizes. I would argue that a one bedroom or a studio doesn't need 2 spaces. So,
Well,
I-
They could have a very good shot at getting the ZBA to agree with them, but it's not a guarantee.
Right,
right,
I just don't know how to evaluate that criteria of adequate given those ratios.
I think it's subjective.
POA is the one that's 1.3. It's the
Oh, it's 1.1.
Community
The other
one,
is 1.1. I'm
right.
sorry, yeah, I just wrote
on
it
page
down.
26.
Yeah,
But the thing that is important here is parking spaces are ugly to look at on a plan, but they are key to having visitors, to having family come, to having, you know, not to go round and round in a circle to find a parking place so you can go to bed at night. So I think we need to look at this this particular thing very seriously.
Yeah, I did too.
There's a definite trend to try to reduce parking as part of the whole sustainability
Yeah,
green economy.
Right.
And that does make a little disconnect between, you know, ideally what you'd want to have to, but at the same time to be looking at ways to try to cut down on this. So I know it presents a difficult situation, but it's definitely.
Well, the car's not going away for a while as a primary mode of transportation around here.
Right.
You know, I mean, it could take a couple of generations to come up with something different.
Right. No, it's true. We're very car dependent.
POA is the one-way drive one, which I like very much. I think the idea of one-way traffic, it's POA who has that. I thought it was Civico, but it's not.
I think there are two. I just wondered if that would be something people would observe or if it would just cause problems.
I don't know. I have to leave you for a minute here.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Oh,
Laura, can I ask you that question follow up? So if we like that one-way system, for example, can we ask for that change? Is that a material change?
I mean, how does it change their layout?
Yeah.
Do they have to move buildings to do that?
One of my other questions in terms of site design that I can't tell from looking at and often comes at the last minute at the ZBA is the place for the fire truck to turn around and pass through. And I wasn't sure on any of these that we saw that adequately.
Well, it's kind of, you have to allow a lot of room for a fire truck to turn around, a big one.
I mean, if there's a one-way road, assuming they can get through the whole thing, does that?
Well, they
sound-
need a 40-foot radius, which, you know, it takes up a lot of room.
They can get out following the road.
Yeah, if it's a one-way road, then they just keep
They
going.
don't need it. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need it.
Yeah, to get back to the parking briefly, what the zoning bylaw says is 2 spaces for each individual dwelling unit, except in the case of apartments where 1.5 spaces shall be provided for each unit.
Right.
Oh, I missed that.
Mhm.
Good going, Harry.
Now, where's my zoom back? There we are.
So for Harry, for
Yep.
adequate, if that's our zoning, so we would say adequate would be 1.5.
Well, I think that would be certainly the high water mark, although you could argue that adequate might be less depending
Right, I'm
on
trying
the
to-
nature of the
right.
units.
I would evaluate that.
Anything, Jim?
The question, maybe I failed to say this, but in terms of the one-way in the POA application here, is that extend so that there's no traffic coming in from Lawrence Road?
Sure looks like it.
I mean, people would have to drive all the way past the school, right? To enter the,
I think that that's also going to be potentially a point of issue for people along Long Pond Road.
Exactly.
Are you talking about the POA project?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think that could be solved with just changing the direction from the second Lawrence Road entrance.
Well, without trying to redesign their project for them. Yeah, I think you're right, Jan, although that involves driving through a parking lot.
Yeah,
which is also a minus. So there's an issue there that's
Right. Yep.
part of our assessment of the site design.
Yeah. It kind of has a look of like, hey, I need another entrance off of Lawrence Road, so let's do this, you know.
Yep. Yep.
We had asked for 2 entrances off of Lawrence Road,
That was in the RFP.
nothing on Long Pond Road.
Yep.
Okay. I think in terms of site design, the positive was how much green space they left along the property lines, but any other comments on site design?
Well, this is one of the ones where it doesn't show bike racks, charging stations, or parking areas for snow. But again, I consider those to be relatively minor things,
Right.
Jim's car notwithstanding.
I don't know if this would, it might come under building design. I'll wait till we get to that. Can we move on to infrastructure and green design?
One more thing on the site design for it. You know, we're still waiting on environmental partners to weigh in on any issues related to the water tower. So, I mean, hopefully the placement of the roads there would not impact on that, but that's something we do need to consider.
Right. And were you going to invite them to our
Yes,
September?
I think the meeting on the 30th.
No. 30th?
I
No,
thought that's what,
that's our site visit,
That's our field
no,
trip.
I'm not, sorry, not the 30th.
10th.
September.
The September 1st, is it? Or
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
Okay, so infrastructure and green design. That was a pretty powerful approach, I thought, in POA. Not only passive building techniques, but solar panels on the roofs. It's pretty,
Right.
pretty aggressive and I think there are questions about those kind of things and air exchange and those kind of things we'll want to ask. I need to understand a lot more about how a system like that would affect living in those buildings, but they certainly provided a great amount of detail for that.
Did they have charging stations?
Don't show any.
They don't show any.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
but I believe they referenced them.
Oh, I didn't see it, so
I had a question mark next to it, so
I'm
yeah.
spotty.
The only one that I actually saw it in was the Civico one that
Yeah.
made mention of it. Yeah.
I think it shows it in community builders too, but
I like the inside bike rails. Did you mention those that the Civico project had? They had hallways with inside bike rails. I thought that was so interesting.
Can I just go back to one question that Harry had? Harry, you asked where the reference is to this 44%.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it's not a page number, but in the community builders, it's the second page after page 66, which is the use of money. The second line is wastewater infrastructure, and then they have the actual amount, 764.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Community builders. Page again, Gary, please.
It's the second page after page 66, which is the use of money.
Okay.
And the second line item down under construction.
Okay. Thank you.
okay, can we move on to building design?
I had a question about the height of the lower village building. It appears to me to be a 3-story building which suggests to me that they're going to need zoning relief. But they don't list any zoning relief to building height or number of stories on where they discuss permitting.
Yeah, you see, that's one of the reasons I wanted to see a cross-section. Because it could be that their parking area, I believe their parking, it's like 1 story where the parking area is.
Mhm.
And then it's higher along Long Pond Road.
Yep.
And it would be nice to have a better idea of how that all works.
Mhm.
And the massing is a little bit, I don't know, concerning, but it certainly is better for the Long Pond Road residents to look at than what's there now, which
Well,
is a
that's
beat up
true.
old senior center.
Yep.
But we did ask for consistency with the residential 1 district. If the building needs an elevator, it's got to be higher than the residential 1 district, which I believe there is an elevator in that building. So
Yes.
that is a big, to me, that's not acceptable according to our standards here. So I don't know, a lot of clarification, maybe.
And there are a few 3-story buildings in Wellfleet, but not many.
Elaine, it's Kathleen, if I could just weigh in on that, to go back to when we were developing the RFP, I think we gave great consideration and discussion to whether or not we wanted a 3-story building because of the elevation and the use of an elevator. The fact that this particular developer is proposing to put in an elevator says to me that they're probably going to need a waiver going forward for zoning for, our height restrictions.
Do they mention an elevator in their proposal? I missed that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
So
an
the-
elevator in this project and
Yeah.
it's something that I thought we were pretty specific in our discussions going back some time as a committee that we would prefer a building did not have an elevator and met our height requirements, but this does not.
It
Yeah.
could meet the height requirement depending on the section.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, I understand what you're saying there, Jay, but if it's got an elevator, it's likely that it might not.
Is that something they could more easily show in a presentation, Laura?
Yes.
Is that something we'd want to give advance? Are there any advance specific questions we can send to developers or?
You can send them clarifying questions
Okay,
in advance. I would say, I would say the advantage of an elevator is accessibility, of course.
I was gonna say, they sold it as an asset, both for senior and ADA, which we maybe want to consider, but I also thought maybe they were building toward it below ground or, at one, it's at ground level on the front and not on the back kind of thing. So it's unclear from the drawings or from the.
Well,
I
There
thought they
is-
called it 1.5 stories, very specifically, 2.5 stories, instead of 3 stories. And
Wow.
that, of course, is because of the elevation of the land,
Well, they're still going to need zoning relief because
Absolutely.
maximum stories is 2 stories in all districts.
Right. They didn't call it a 3-story, they called it a 2.5.
Uh,
okay.
Go laundry facility on
Yeah,
that lower level.
I question that too, Jim, is that one of the proposals has laundry in the individual units and one has a collective laundry. And while we didn't spell that out, we did discuss that was a significant difference. So I don't know how to evaluate that then.
Yeah,
Can
we
we
didn't,
evaluate based on our discussion, Laura?
we didn't ask for in-unit laundry. We just
Yeah,
asked.
so that's what
for
I'm wondering. Right.
facility.
But can we still say we like that better? And give them a higher grade?
They weren't privy to your discussions. They're only privy to
Right,
what
I
you put in
understand.
writing.
Right, I'm trying to evaluate how we evaluate.
How
what-
we evaluate.
I
yeah.
mean, I guess we could ask them how many uh, machines there are in the upper and the lower village, like how many they can provide in the space, no?
I mean, you can ask them that, but this is like really early to be asking those kinds of questions.
Okay.
You know?
Is it possible to ask if their design has a space in each unit where the individuals could choose to install their own equipment?
It's kind of a construction issue if it's above the first floor.
Mhm.
So, you have to kind of plan for it
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
because you have to have you have to have a venting, and you have to have, if it's above, you need to have a pan under it and to be, because so then it's liability as well. So,
okay.
Yeah, they show in the Upper Village community building, they also show a laundry there too. And I don't see it specifically called out in any of the typical floor plans.
Right, no, it's not. I just was wondering, if there was that kind of flexibility built in at all.
But I have a
Elaine.
question about, I'm sorry.
Laura?
I was just going to say, you can ask them about how many there's a ratio of how many, machines to bedrooms usually. They probably have a standard.
I looked at all of them in terms of storage, and I didn't find much there. I wondered
Yeah.
what was other people's reaction to that?
They showed storage in the lower village, but I had a question mark in the upper village.
And it's shared storage for a fair number of people.
Mhm.
They're not much they allocate.
Okay. Anything more on building design right now? Financial feasibility, we really have to wait on that. I mean, the track record of securing proposed financing, we see that
Right.
in very strongly in POAs.
Right.
But the first two bullet items we'll have to wait on, although Laura, you said you could potentially tell us about the appropriateness of rents in relation to the market, or that's part of the feasibility study.
No, I can do that. I will just note, in taking a look at it, if you look at POAs, they have average rent. They don't have it broken down specifically by so many units at 50, so many units at 60. So that's where you'll find a difference, because they used average rent for their financial modeling.
Elaine?
Yes,
We didn't actually specify the size of the unit, proposed size of the unit, but there is significant difference in the proposed size of the unit. Can we evaluate that, Laura? Can we say we really like the larger one better, or?
There's pros and cons to larger units
Yeah.
and smaller units too. So you didn't say, I can give you the DHCD's guidelines for what the minimums should be. But they're not their guidelines, and a lot of times one bedrooms are smaller than what they say, because they have 700 square foot one bedrooms, and a lot of one bedrooms are smaller than that.
70 square foot bedrooms.
I'm sorry,
I think you said 700 square feet.
700 square feet for a one bedroom apartment.
Ah,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. So I can look and see that, or I can give you the those guidelines that DHCD has. But other than that, they tend to be, on the smaller side. A lot of one bedrooms are 600 and studios are 450 or something like that. So, but I'll send you those guidelines. They usually stay within those guidelines because they're in the funding guidelines.
Sure.
If one person suggests a one bedroom of 1,000 square feet and the other for 850, for the sake of argument, can we evaluate those as in terms of that criteria?
No, you didn't ask for
Right, I
minimums,
understand, yeah.
so I would say no. 1,000 square foot one bedroom is going to cost more to heat than a 850 square foot. So there's, like I said, there's pros and cons. You didn't indicate anything in the RFP that you wanted anything above what housing programs would require or would suggest. They don't really require.
Oversight on our part.
Well, it's,
Not really.
no, because it's pros and cons to both. Depends on your sustainability. What lens you're looking at it.
Right. Coming to this next section, Elaine, that brings us to your nice list of reference questions that you sent out yesterday. Since I'm one of those people who said I would make calls, can we talk about those now when we come to references, site visits, and interviews?
Sure, I've been thinking about this a lot. I just, Olga and I have been working on a list of the references and contact information. And, some of them are very closely connected to the site. And most of the questions that we proposed in the list are very, someone that's very familiar with the project and the site, which, we do want to, I think there's at least one or two names under each person. But then I wanted to ask Laura, in terms of the financial references that they give, what's recommended to do about calling any of those, and those would be totally different questions.
Right, those would be totally different questions, and it depends. The questions would be different whether they were a lender financial reference or a banking reference. Like, is their banking relationship good? Do they, do they have sufficient assets to provide what they're, what they're claiming in their financial statement? So there's different questions for the financial folks. I think, Elaine, was it you that I was talking? I can't remember who I talked to about things because I have 3 RFPs at the same time right now coming in. Did we talk about the financial questions? Did I
No.
talk about that with you? Okay. I do have some that I can share.
And I was also wondering if anybody in the group feels more capable of this, of asking those questions and taking in the answers, or if Kathleen and Olga and Jan are happy to do both.
I don't want to volunteer. I'm happy with your selection, but I wonder if we should wait until after the site visits and maybe after the presentations, because I'm sure that there will be questions, or can we go back and ask a second round of questions based upon that?
Yeah, I was wondering about the timing also.
It might make sense, since and my experience with references is that they're somewhat self-fulfilling, but that we might have more detail and more specific questions that we could ask based upon those.
Do you have a recommendation about timing of those calls, Laura?
No, I think they just have to be done before you get to the, final scoring. And a lot of times in their presentations, they'll reference past projects. And so, it may be a good idea to do it after.
Okay, so we can keep refining. We'll get the financial questions from Laura and keep refining that. But, if the three of you, I can send you the lists of, the references and those questions to be considering, and we'll keep working on that.
Thank you. Yep. Good. Since we, speaking of site visits, put off planning to go to Lincoln, we need to, if we're going to go to other sites, we have to also then go up to Lincoln, I guess is the closest Civico site. So should we try to squeeze that into, it is such a busy schedule, but I guess we have to go all out as much as we can.
Elaine,
yes.
I don't feel compelled to treat, do the same number of site visits for each response. I'm not excited about going up to Lincoln.
That's the only one.
I know.
Okay.
Sorry, our grass is getting cut. It's really noisy.
Yeah. It's also not necessary for all of us to go, because I know that when we've done the two high school projects, we sent some groups that were less than, half a dozen people out of a committee of 15 to some of these schools and just listen to their comments when they came back. We don't necessarily have to get 8 people to every place.
Right. No, I think if we have a smaller group that would be willing to do that, that would be great, but maybe not till after Labor Day. I don't know. I wonder too if there's any way to arrange a video walkthrough. Is that an option?
That would be wonderful. Is that something that when Becky comes back, she could help us set up a site visit online?
Okay, we'll take some questions. We'll consider that. Kathleen?
You're muted.
A couple of things here before we close the meeting. First, maybe a subcommittee could do the Lincoln site visit, but I feel in all fairness, if we are going to visit sites, we should at least see one from each proposer. That's my take on that. My second comment, gosh, I hope I can remember. I think I wrote everything down. Elaine, maybe you could briefly give us a quick commentary on your Meet the Neighbors. And thirdly, I'd ask to take an informal poll of all the committee members while we're on this POA evaluation, which is just a preliminary quick glance, if you will, today. What was your take on their naming the project, naming the site, Long Pond Village? And what was your take on their breaking up the site to Upper Village, Lower Village? Just quickly, if you could say, yay or nay, was that something you liked, didn't like? I was taken aback by it personally, but I'd like to hear from everybody else before we close our POA evaluation.
Okay, and Olga?
I'm focused on contractors and I don't know where to ask, but whether it's during our visit or the developer reference, who built the project? That would be a question.
Okay. In terms of the naming thing, I don't think that's something we're stuck with, is it, Laura? Is it just to kind of help describe what's, to me, it was helpful to know what they were talking about, but I don't think it's something that then we would say, yes, that's what it's going to be called. Is that right, Laura?
Yeah, I mean, that certainly can get negotiated. That wasn't part of your, part of your review, but, I think,
Does that happen sometimes though? That,
oh yeah, absolutely. I've had a couple of them that, for various reasons, the name is changed because folks didn't like the name that was originally given. And a lot of proposals just come in with the address and then they name it later in consultation, so.
because we had, TCB named the two areas also,
Yeah.
whereas Civico didn't because it was a continuous
One piece.
area,
Mhm.
one
Right.
piece.
Right. I think it was helpful to, in describing which area they were talking about in their proposal. But
Mhm.
it may be,
Is that
again,
okay, Kathleen?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just thought, what was anybody's take on
So you're
that?
saying
Yeah.
about, okay, I do agree
Could
that,
I add to that just that we asked that there be a path between the two parts. So in a sense, in our proposal, in our RFP, we led to the idea of there might be two sections because we specifically put in that we wanted a path between them. So maybe they felt they needed to do two sections. I don't know.
Harry, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm largely ambivalent about names. Almost every development I've touched as an attorney has a name that's never made sense to me. And I look at things like King's Landing and King's Grant, and we fought a war over that. Come on, folks. As far as the two, the two villages, this is a 20-foot difference in topography there. There's a physical differentiation, and I don't really have a problem with calling one the upper village and the other one the lower village, or having two different names. So I think that they're more reflective of marketing realities than anything else, and I just ignore them.
Yeah, I looked
Question
at
on
that. Oh, sorry.
Will the road or the access road to the project have a name itself?
I don't.
Are we required to do that for the town?
Yeah.
Probably. I think the
I
fire
think
department. Yeah. It'll get a name whether they like it or not. The fire department will insist on it.
Right.
or it could be a driveway.
Yeah.
Right.
It won't be built to, it probably, won't be built to road standards because it's an internal roadway or driveway is typically what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Olga, you have your hand up.
I have a question about this being a public meeting. Is it appropriate that this, I know the press is here, that all of this discussion is now available to the developers?
Yes,
Sure. Yes.
Should we make it, is that okay?
it has to be. This is
Yep.
this
Okay.
process has to be public.
Yeah.
I saw that Michael Kim, who's the architect for one of these people, was actually tuned into our first meeting, practically the whole one, the last meeting I think we had, or one of them anyway.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yep, no, I think it's good. It's important. I want to go back to Kathleen's thing about we should have a report on at least one site from every developer. I would love to see the site in Lincoln myself. I think it looks beautiful. So I'd be willing to go. Is anybody else wanting to go to
Same. I'll
Lincoln?
try and go.
I'll try.
Subcommittee.
Do you have a date in mind, Kathleen? I mean, Elaine?
I'm actually going to be away for the week of Labor Day. I'll be tuning into our presentations from Chautauqua, New York. So I don't know if we can squeeze it in before that.
Maybe on the 3rd?
September 3rd.
Oh, well, wait a minute. Can I just go back and ask the question about process from this point forward?
Mhm.
Laura is going to send us some evaluation rating sheets.
Mhm.
Is that my understanding, Laura? And we're going to go through now what we were planning to do today, and we're going to do that at a later date to actually evaluate the 3 based on the criteria.
Yeah, I think what we did today was a really actually good.
Oh, I'm not saying it wasn't useful. I'm just trying to understand the schedule. So
I think we should do
Exactly.
this. I feel like I may be wrong. We should do the same thing with the next 2 proposals, ideally.
Yep.
Now that we've had the experience, do the next 2 at our next meeting, and then take on that score sheet from Laura after the presentation.
Good.
Mhm.
So just in terms of planning, right, so
So September 1st.
so September 1st, we're going to do the
Other
other
2.
2 proposals that like we did today
Right.
and just go through them.
Yep. And potentially have a little time with environmental partners.
Well, that was my next question is, have we been in touch with the wastewater, no longer the wastewater, the clean water? And do we need to?
Yep, they potentially can come either the 1st or the next meeting. I think that's the 13th. Maybe we should have them on the 13th, or unless we want them before our interviews. I mean, our presentations.
I would think so.
Yeah, as long as they can be really brief, you know.
I guess I'm just wondering, if you're going away, should we plan maybe another meeting to go through the evaluation sheets before the week of the 6th?
Well, we have a meeting on Wednesday.
Right, but that's why I thought we were going through the other 2 proposals
Right.
like we did today.
Right.
So I don't know if we could also do the evaluation sheets. Not seeing them, I'm not sure, what's involved with them.
I think we have a meeting on the 13th, the Monday after the
We do.
presentations on the 10th.
Yeah.
That might make sense
And
to,
we should do the evaluation sheets after the presentations, I think.
yeah.
On the 13th. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the 13th, we're going to do the evaluation.
Let's say yes. And then we have another meeting on Wednesday because we thought,
15th at 1, right.
and we may, because of the financial analysis, we may be extending, and if we need more meetings, we can have them.
Okay, so our homework for the 13th, for the meeting on Wednesday is simply to go through the other 2 like we did today.
Yeah,
And then,
Just to confirm, the presentations are going to be on the 10th.
yes. I'll send out that schedule. I guess I was also going to ask if on the 1st, we would like to meet at 9 again instead of 10.
Yeah, 9's good.
Yeah, I can do it.
Yes,
I know, Laura, you said you could be with us from 10 to 11, but I don't know if 9 on that day would work for you.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
What day was it again?
September 1st.
September 1st, Wednesday, I believe.
Yeah, I have a meeting at 10. I have lots of meetings that day that are all, I have to be done by 11. I can probably get out of 9 would be better.
Okay,
Good.
let's say 9 o'clock then.
Okay.
And I'm realizing that if we don't have a meeting, did we say we would do, if we don't have a meeting between the 1st and the 10th, we do need to come up with some specific question, the general questions and the specific questions for the developers for their presentation. So we have to find a time to work on that too. So maybe, and Becky will be back the 7th. I don't know if we'd want to have a Wednesday, the 8th meeting to firm up, or before that. Jay?
It is the
Oh,
Jewish
yeah.
holiday.
The 8th would be good.
Okay, Jay?
Laura, didn't you say that we shouldn't be asking the developers questions when they do their presentations?
Oh, we should.
No, I said you should be asking clarifying questions, and if you
Clarifying
have,
questions, okay, yeah.
yeah, clarifying questions really is about it.
Laura, one of the developers actually said they want to get in touch to ask what are our thoughts about the presentations.
No, 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 no.
And Elaine, can I just make a suggestion with regard to the presentations? Could we as a group do a lottery so that we could pull their names? So that we're not putting one before the other, but we've just randomly pulled a name as to who goes first, second, and third.
They're already scheduled, aren't
Oh,
they?
they're on a time schedule already.
So we've already given them a slot, each individual?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. I
Yeah.
just thought we could be more, you know,
No.
it's okay.
Random.
Yeah,
Uh,
random play.
Elaine, you could give them, if you could give all of them an idea of what you're looking for, like, an overview of their vision, the plan they had, why they, developed it the way they did. And, just, but you'd need to do it to everyone. You wouldn't just do it to one developer.
Right.
It's
Right.
20 minutes, so it's a short period of time. So,
But then
Um,
there'll be questions after the 20 minutes. So, yeah, I think it's key why they developed it the way they did. I think that's a wonderful question, Laura. I think that will explain so much,
what the development concept and vision is. That's
Right.
kind of,
right?
sometimes they bring architects, sometimes they don't. I don't think it's necessary to specify. Because sometimes the development officer has as much insight as anyone.
Thinking about Civico too, I mean, they're obviously going to be working with Union Studios. That's who they proposed as architect. Aren't there a couple of places on the Cape that Union Studios did or has done, Laura? They're not affordable housing, but
They're not comparable.
they're not comparable. Okay, all right. So, but I am concerned about timing to craft our questions for the developers. We don't want to have a ton of questions. We want a few
I was
really.
gonna say it's minimal,
Mhm,
clarifying questions.
mhm. So we may have identified a couple today for POA. If
Mhm.
anybody wants to take a whack at saying these are the
Okay.
good
That's a good
questions
idea.
I heard. And then we can do the same for Civico and community builders on next Wednesday, which will be a busy meeting, but I found this really helpful today.
Yes.
I feel like it was a good start for all of us to be looking at these together. And so we'll try to keep it really moving along.
So Elaine, can we get back to something I asked of you? Could
Yep.
you just briefly state your feeling about the meeting of the neighbors on this past Saturday? Just for
Right.
the rest of the group, thank you.
Yes, Gary and I was invited, Gary and I were invited as members of the task force to meet with abutters and neighbors to 95 Lawrence, mostly people on Old Long Pond Road and Old Kings Highway, at the invitation of Jeff and Cheryl Sachs, who are abutters and big supporters of the project, and Kevin Rice and Marla Friedman, who also live on Long Pond Road and are supporters. It was a really pretty lovely informal gathering. We presented sort of the basic process and, supporting the need, and people asked questions. I think it was very positive that there was some really incredible support and then some really honest questions, which, I think can factor into as we're looking at these. I don't know, Gary, if anything changed your mind about that or anything.
No, I would add the observation that it seemed of the big concerns, they're all centered around water, both drinking water and wastewater.
Yes, and
the fact that unlike some other, we have really taken a lead on having a solution. They may or may not agree with our solution, but it wasn't something that we hadn't thoughtfully planned for. And I think they appreciated that.
right.
And
And
I think we came back many times with the idea that we had really brought in experts, that we had done the studies, that this is why it makes sense.
mhm. And Jan also attended, and Ryan Curley attended, and then just some very interested people from town who I guess are friends of those in the neighborhood and came in support. We'll have a list
Big
of,
group.
It was.
I have
Yeah.
to go, excuse me.
Mhm.
Sorry. Yeah.
okay. See you 8 o'clock on Monday morning at Cove Corners, right? And I'll send the GPS address for the first one, and we'll go from there. Laura, thank you so much. It was really so helpful
Yes,
to have
thank you,
you for
Laura.
this discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Good to see
Thanks,
you.
Laura.
Welcome. Good
Everybody
to see
stay
you all.
cool and
everybody.
stay healthy.
Bye.